All right, gang, we're going to start this little series, a new series of if you want to move to a foreign country, some things you should know. Very important. All right, first thing is, and I will talk about England in my case. However, I think this applies to other countries. I know it applies to Norway and a few other countries that I looked into as well before I chose England, which was my first choice. I mean, that's not true. Norway was my first choice, but there's some obstacles in Norway. And there's obstacles in every country, but the obstacles in Norway were tax related, and that would have made it impossible to do what I'm doing, because I would have paid 38% tax in the United States, and then they would have taxed me another 35%. So, ain't happening. England doesn't do that. France doesn't do that. So that made them the first two candidates at the top of the list. So that's important to consider, how the country you're moving to taxes your investment income, your retirement income, right? Okay, number one. Number two is a lot of these countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, England, have restrictions on how long you can be there without proper visas, meaning you can come visit for 6 months. Yeah, you can go to England and many of these other countries for a total of 6 months in a year. However, beyond that, if you get caught, you could be blocked for 5 years or more from going back to that country. So if you can only spend 6 months a year in a country, you're not moving your entire property to that place. It's too costly, which we will get to in a second. So, speaking of cost, we were quoted $36,000 to pack everything and send half of it air, the important stuff, my gear for work, for being a musician, and computers, et cetera, the essentials, and for the other half going by sea. Yeah, that ain't happening. We had calculated it would be around 20, and it's going to end up being 18. How did we do that? Well, we got one company to ship us air for about $8,400, and then the bulk of it is going sea for roughly another $9,000. So we're at $17,000, $18,000 to, and now, before you say, yeah, that's still a lot of money. Yeah, that's still a lot of money. But we have a 3,000 square foot house. We're only taking approximately half of our stuff. We are not taking everything. We're having an estate sale while we're gone, and then we're selling the house. So that's $18,000 to ship only half of our stuff from a 3,000 square foot house to a 1,000 square foot house. Not a flat, a house in London. That's not unusual, because 1,000 square feet is pretty good footage, unless you can find an old Victorian that needs a lot of work and you have $2 million. So that's kind of normal, 1,000 square feet or a little more. 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, I think 3.5 baths we got, yeah, about 1,000 square feet, just over 1,000 square feet. So $18,000 to ship it. Here's the real trick to shipping your stuff, which is why we should cut down on what we own. Again, only taking half of what we own, but you should cut down on it, because guess what? You have to label each box. You can't just pack stuff like normally if you're going across town or to another state. That's not how this works. Customs. So to do it properly, and I'm sure people don't do it properly, that's fine, they can do whatever they want. But to do this properly so that you don't get called on it and you don't get stuck at the border in customs and have all kinds of other issues is you have to label every item that's in that box. You can't just throw things in the box. So think about how tricky it is to label an entire pod with boxes. And there's 2 of those pods, right? One was smaller. The air shipment was smaller than this one. But every box has to be labeled with your name, the date, and every item in that box for customs. That's the proper way to do it. I'm sure other people do it. Maybe they can fudge it and whatever. We're not doing that. We were told this is the proper way if we don't want our stuff held up at customs. Very important. And yeah, all of us own too much stuff, right? So it's kind of depressing. I'll be honest. This has been a very sobering and depressing at the same time endeavor, because I'm just going, what was I doing? We've been together 31 years. We've had this house for 10. Our previous house for 7 or 8 before that. And then before that, blah, blah, blah. It's just stuff. I'm finding stuff from 22 years ago when I moved to Nashville that are still in the boxes. I mean, so it's really something to think about if you ever want to move across the ocean. Yeah, we just accumulate too much stuff. And our houses are much bigger. So we're spoiled. So that's just the first quick rundown of everything we've learned so far. I will keep this series going because there might be some of you that want to know how to do this. Now, the last piece of the equation I should let you know, and it should have been the first really, is so I got an exceptional talent visa for 5 years in England. I have a band in England, the London Experimental Ensemble, that I'm a member of. There are 11 of us, and it's been very difficult to not be with them during COVID and not being able to live there. However, it took a lot of red tape, especially post-Brexit, to get, as some of you know, my subscribers know this because they've been watching me through this frustration. It took probably a year to get through the red tape, and it was 4 years in the planning before that. And I was able to get it partially, a little easier. I was able to get it because I have dual citizenship. My father was a Norwegian citizen, but that's not the citizenship I used. My subscribers will know that a few years ago, I applied for Italian citizenship using my mother's father. That's how it works in Italy. It's the paternal side, and got Italian citizenship. Now, that would have made it much easier to get a visa in pre-Brexit in England, because pre-Brexit, an EU passport would have been handy, but Brexit. So it didn't hurt to have that EU passport, but if they hadn't Brexited, it would have been a lot easier as well. So think about that, whatever country you're going to, if you have some history, some ancestry, just research that, but plan in advance. It took 3 years, start to finish, to get my Italian citizenship. And we've been planning this England move for 4 years, and it took a year of red tape. Now, the 3 years for the Italian citizenship and were concurrent with the 4 years of planning to go to England. And then the last year of red tape was after I already had my Italian citizenship. So it is a 4-year endeavor, right? And it's a lot of work, I must tell you. You have to be really organized, and you have to be able to keep really good records. Just like I said about the moving and having everything labeled. But if you really want to see organization, man, you try to get your foreign passport. That is that was a lot of work. But anyway, if any of you have any questions, let me know as we say goodbye to fair Nashville and the hills in the distance, which I think you can't see, well, maybe a little bit because it's a little bit of a morning mist fog because it's getting cooler here. But that's the first installment of Big Ed Goes to London and the hurdles involved there too.